This is section 4 of our Vectorworks drafting tutorial. For part 1, we're going to be drafting the remaining architecture of this theater that we've already started to create. So the stage left wing of this theater is going to be larger than the other one. In the previous section, we created the stage right proscenium, we mirrored it, and we moved it over 38 feet to create our opening. But now this needs to be a little bit bigger to represent the additional space that this theater is going to have on the stage left side. So I'm going to zoom into it here, and I'm going to select the polygon that creates our proscenium opening, and I get my reshape handles that we established clear back in section 1 when we set up the preferences of our drawing. So I'm going to grab this one on the center, and when I get the 2 arrowed line, I know that I've got a hold of that point and can manipulate the drawing out. So if I click on it once, I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, based entirely on that point. So I want to make it a little bit larger, so I'm going to move it and again tab into my floating display bar. And I'm going to make the delta X to be 16 feet, which is going to be what our space is on the stage left side. Click enter. You can see that it makes it bigger. We'll zoom out and pan over. And I'll click again, and it automatically resizes that proscenium section. It maintains the hatch. It just makes it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we're going to move back over to the stage right side. So again, I'm holding the space bar and clicking and dragging, having temporary use of that pan tool so I can quickly maneuver around the drawing. And I'm going to create a new rectangle. So again, it's in the basic tool set, or in our case, the keyboard shortcut is the number 4. We're going to hit that. And we're going to start at the end point of the lower left-hand corner of this part of the proscenium arch. We're going to click once to start our rectangle. Again, I'm in corner-to-corner mode up in my toolbar. And so now I can manipulate the size of the rectangle. So we know that we want it to be a specific size. So once again, we're going to tab into the floating display bar. We're going to make the delta X value minus 10.5. Which is 10.5 inches. We'll tab over to delta Y, and we'll make it 26 feet. Great. And we'll click and establish our rectangle. As you can see, much like the polygon that we created in the last section, it's defaulting to just a solid fill of white. We want to change that again, so we want to go up here, select the drop-down menu, give it a hatch. Again, it's going to do this goofy square thing that we don't like. So we're going to go through and select our brick. Boom, there it is. And we've got the stage right wall of our theater. Now, to make it a little bit easier on ourselves, we only need to draw it once, and then we can mirror it. So we'll select it, go back up to the basic tool set, and grab our mirror tool, making sure that we're in duplicate mode up on the toolbar. And once again, just finding the midpoint, smart point of our plaster line. When I click on that line, I can drag straight up holding the shift key. I'll click again, and when I zoom out, it has mirrored the wall across the center of the proscenium line. Now, this clearly is not where this wall intersects the proscenium, but it's been an easy way of creating it and getting it over to the side of the stage that we want. So now I'm going to zoom in where these two intersect, and I'm going to grab the bottom left smart point of the wall that we just mirrored and drag it over to the end point of the proscenium and let go, and now I have created that second wall. I'm going to finish this out by creating the back wall of the theater. So again, I'm going to start my rectangle tool. I'm going to go to the top left smart point over here, drag it across to the top right. I can see that my delta X is 66 feet 9 inches. That's great. I want this thickness of this wall to be 10.5 inches as well. So I'll tab in once, I'll tab a second time to get to delta y, type 10.5, enter, there's my thickness, and click to complete. Again, we're still in our solid white, which we don't want. We're in our goofy square hatch that we don't like. So we'll select that. And now all of our outer architecture of our theater is complete, all having the same hatch. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is put in our center line. Remember, all theaters reference off of a plaster line center line, so we can do our point coordinates and everybody's referencing the same origin. So I'm going to select my line tool from the basic tool set. In this case, I'm going to hit the number 2 because I know that that's my shortcut. And I'm going to find the midpoint of the plaster line. I'm going to click once, holding shift to lock my orientation, going straight up until I get to object vertical, and I'll click again, and I have inserted that line. So standard theatrical convention and drafting standards say that a center line should be a long, short, long dashed line. So I need to change how that looks. So I'm going to go to the Attributes palette in the drop-down menu of the pen, select the line type, and it does not want to be ISO 3. It wants to be ISO 08. Right here, ISO 08, long dash, short dash. I'll double click on that. And when we zoom in, we can see that I get a long, short, long dashed line for my center line, which is exactly what we want. We need to indicate that that's the center line. So we've already done that with the plaster line over here, so we're going to use that to our advantage. We'll just click on our plaster line group that we created in the previous section, and we're going to duplicate that. The keyboard shortcut is Command D. The menu location is under Edit and Duplicate. So it's just created a duplication, but because in the preferences at the beginning of section 1, we deselected offset duplications, so it's literally sitting right on top of itself. So if I click this new one and I drag it over, I actually have 2. This one was just sitting right on top of that one. All right, so we're going to move this up to where it would indicate the center line to be, and I'm just going to click and drag, and if I go up like this and over like that, the drawing kind of moves around for me, and I'm going to set that text right there. Now obviously this is the center line, not the plaster line, so we need to edit that. So I'm going to zoom in on it and double click on that. I've now entered the group, right? I'm in the group editing menu, and I'm just going to double click on the P to get into that and highlight it and change it to a C for center line. I'll hit escape once to get out of that, hit the X to get to my selection tool, click out of that so nothing is selected, and I'm all done, so I can exit that group, and now that has been easily changed to represent the center line. We still need to change the line weight of our center line. If we select it right now, it's at 2, which is going to be too small. So we're going to change that. We'll select it, and we're going to give it a line weight of 7. That will be better. With this still selected, I'm going to adjust the length of it a little bit. Right now it's only running from the proscenium up to the back wall. We need it to run further out into the front of house so that when we start working on our front of house positions, we still have a center line of the room to reference. So with it selected, I'm going to go to my Object Info palette. Here's the information about that. And I'm going to select on the top reshape handle so that it's referencing that point as I change it. And I'm going to change the length, which is right here under L, to 60 feet. Okay, and press enter. It's already executed the change so that when I zoom out, now my center line extends all the way out into the front of house, and I know when I place my front of house lighting positions, I'm still going to have that same reference point to know when to place things on center. Okay, we still need to change the line weight on the architecture that that we drew. So let's go ahead and select those 3 walls that we put in. Again, their line weight is 2. We don't want that. We want it to be 20, which will match what we did for the proscenium. So by selecting that, now all of our architecture has exactly the same line weight. We need to create the apron of our stage, that area downstage of the plaster line. So I'm going to activate the line tool again, number 2. And I'm going to go to the upstage right corner of this proscenium, right where these intersect, so I'm at the top right point. I'm going to click once and drag it straight down to start my line. I'm going to tab into the floating display bar, and I'm going to make this length 4 feet. Great, there's my circle. I'll hit Shift and click here to set that point. Then I'm going to go from the end point of the line I just created, zooming out and panning over a little bit. I'm going to acquire the smart point of this endpoint, but then hold down my Shift key so it locks me in horizontally to that 38 feet. I'll click that line, click once again to set that line, zoom in a little bit so I can see a little better, grabbing that endpoint one more time and coming up to that point, which creates my apron. I don't want those just to be lines floating around by themselves, so I am actually going to make a group out of them, and so I am going to click and click, selecting all 3 of those lines, and Command G again is my grouping tool. Now I've created the apron of my stage. If I want to move it, I can. I don't, so I'm just going to Control Z back out of that. And the basic structure and outline of our theater is pretty well complete. So I'm going to click on, instead of Fit to Page, I'm going to click on Fit to Objects, which is going to zoom out to everything that I have drawn on the page, so that I can see the whole thing. And I'm going to save this as a brand new file. So I'm going to go up to Save As, and I'm in my 4630 projects, and I'm going to make this be the generic theater. And your initials. So I'll make it generic theater, TCR. And I know that I've got that theater complete, and click Save. And that is section 4 of the tutorial. We'll move on with section 5 to put in our line set schedule and pretty well have the theater drafted out.